Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Future is Bilingual podcast. My name is Heather. As you can see from today's episode title, this is part 2 of my interview with Etai. So if you haven't listened to part 1, I do suggest going back and listening to that part first so you have an idea of who he is, because in today's episode, we dive right in. Luckily, we have a quick recap of the languages he knows, and then we dive into a lot of interesting topics. Among them are language attrition, code switching, playing with languages, interpreting, a little bit of talk of grammar and cases, and how Etai manages to learn more than one language at a time, and different ways that he likes to maintain his languages. And we even do a fun little language game at the end. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and without further ado, here it is. Did we finish talking about your languages?
Let's go like this. Let's go. We have, this I think tends to be English, right?
Usually.
Right. This is English.
Yeah.
My mother tongue is Hebrew, German, French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Polish, Russian. I'm familiarizing myself with the Slavic languages now, Polish and Russian. I haven't gotten to any Asian languages, but at the moment, just Asian languages break my brain, and there will come a point where they don't do that, I'm sure. But at the moment, I'm just comfortable enough, exploring the Slavic languages. But I will eventually get to the Asian languages, particularly. My emotional connection with the languages are already with the languages I'm engaged with,
right?
And eventually, I've looked at a lot of Eastern thought in my time and so on, and eventually that will probably lead to some language exploration in that area as well. But for the moment, I think, what is it that about? Don't forget Yiddish, because Yiddish.
Oh yes.
I learned Yiddish by osmosis through my Bob and my Zaydim, right? My Saba and Savta in Israel. So when I first started to study German, systematically, as a junior in high school, I cheated, quote unquote, with Yiddish. In other words, I understood German because I had a basis in Yiddish. Now it switched. It flipped.
Interesting.
I understand Yiddish because I have such a solid base in German. The Yiddish I understand.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how that flips. Right?
It's been helpful either way, right?
Yes. I mean, I don't know. I don't know when it flipped. I don't know how it flipped. It wasn't a conscious flipping, but it did flip.
Yeah. Well, it's like any of our changes or attrition or,
right.
It's never conscious. We're never like, I want to, not usually at least, like I want to forget this or I want to get stronger or weaker in this. It just happens one day. We realize, oh geez, like I can't think of words in this language, or there's a whole episode on attrition.
Right. Yes. And I and that episode, thank you, sticks in my mind, is very much in my mind. It's a concept that I keep coming back to. And I want to just echo and express the frustration of attrition that happens, because we talked about Hebrew. I keep saying is my mother tongue, and so it's just Lisa and I here in South Dakota, and we talk to the cat, and we talk amongst ourselves, and we talk to ourselves. And I hear the Hebrew, but when I speak with my parents, we understand each other, but I'm painfully aware when I speak Hebrew that there are certain words, not even words, but like concepts that I know are missing. It's like I've got the framework, but I don't have the shade. I've got the picture, but I don't have the exact shade. And believe it or not, and this is something I wish wasn't the case with me, but I am a perfectionist in in certain ways.
Me too.
Which can be a problem when you're studying languages, because what it can do is it can keep you from trying and putting yourself out there and just being foolish, which one has to do when one is it's just part of learning a language. You're going to open your mouth and you're not going to be perfect. And we just have to be okay with that. Now, for those of us who are perfectionists, we struggle with this, which is why sometimes we don't open our mouths as much as we should. But please open your mouth and speak.
Yes, that's a very good point.
And I'm speaking to myself here more than, as much as I'm speaking to anybody who's listening out there. I notice it doesn't flow as much in Hebrew as I would like it to. Or my German, because I don't really have a chance to speak in German. I speak mostly in English when I speak.
Right.
And so that is the language in which I can most fluently and fluidly express myself. And I'm aware of it, and I find it very frustrating when I code switch. And I know that there is a way of that I'm speaking, and then it gets stuck, and I'm looking for ways to talk about it in the language, and it's missing. And that's partially attrition. It's partially, depending on language, it's attrition. It can be level, fluency and so on, what have you. But it's for me, it's very frustrating, and I'm aware of it. And it's just something that we have to find a way to still have it be fun, and to be kind with ourselves and to ourselves, and just, if it's because if it's not fun and you're not somehow positively associated with it, I find that the learning just won't happen.
Right. And it depends on people's reactions.
Right.
As well. Like if your family is, kind and helps you with the word that you're struggling to find, that's a whole different situation than, if your family's like, what? You forgot all your Hebrew? How could you do that? Blah, blah, blah. It goes both ways. We need to be kind. People need to be kind. We should be kind to others that are maybe, learning English and not speaking it perfectly yet because they know another language. We all need to be kinder. I think that should be the motto of 2021.
And that should be the motto of life in general, in any year,
Very true.
Which we really have to learn and integrate and just make a part of our unconscious being.
Right.
But so it's I'm aware of it, and I'm noticing it, and it the perfectionist part of me is very frustrated when that happens, but it happens all the time. And it's, I guess, and I hate this word, but I guess it's normal. I don't know what the word normal is. In my opinion, we should just strike normal out of every, lexicon in the world, because,
there's no one normal. Maybe it's natural. It's
not okay. Natural is better. See, natural, I think is better. But I think that's the point. So there was one other language that we talked about that I didn't, that has a story behind it. And that is, at some point in my life, believe it or not, although I couldn't really prove it to you now, I was comfortable in Hungarian. Wow. Now that has a story behind it. And believe it or not, it has to do with with the CP. So the sort of the prime mover, the prime directive in relation to myself in my family was always, your job is to be as independent as possible in physically, and so that you can go out and you can do what it is that you need to do, and you'll be able to do it as long as you are, physically able to do whatever it is that you do. Whatever it is that one needs to do, with as little help and as little, accommodation as possible. Part of which I think is a good way of being, but part of which I find to be, as I've grown up, to be a little bit of bullshit. because, as independent as I could have been or, became, there's still a lot of accessibility issues and so on, that I've encountered, and it's part of why I have despite all my education, part of why I've had such a hard time finding work and so on over the years. But basically, the mantra was be as independent as possible, and so my parents were looking for ways and therapies to make that be a reality. And so my parents discovered a therapy created by a Professor Andreas Pető, a Hungarian doctor. Now, I'm going to back up and explain to you that there was a law in Hungary at some point in its existence, which said that if any child could not write independently and could not toilet independently, the child was not allowed to go to school, could not participate in the Hungarian education system.
Wow. So
this Dr. Andreas Pető created an institute which exists to this day in Budapest. So what he did was he created this institute in which he not only would the children go to school, but they would also have a regimen of a very special kind of therapy, which would help them to accomplish the goals of being as physically independent and being able to toilet themselves as possible. And it became this method known as the Pető method. And so my parents heard about this method, and they sent me to. All told, I spent 3 months in Hungary, November to Christmas of 88, and January to March of 89. So this Pető Institute, there were several floors, most of which were meant for Hungarian children to be in school, but there was an international floor where non-Hungarians would come and be exposed to this method. And I, being a non-Hungarian, was thrown on this floor with a number of international students or patients and so on. And so the way that I had to acclimate very quickly, because all of the instructions, whether we liked it or not, this was a very strict regimen, which I fought in every possible way. It was in many ways it was hell. But the only way that one could spare oneself too much torture, and it was all torture, but the easiest way to minimize the torture was to pick up the Hungarian as quickly as possible. And so, because all of the commands, all of the orders were in Hungarian, they insisted on it. And everything was done with a 5 count. So, I stand up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I sit down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I move my left hand up, 1, 2. I move my right. Everything was done to a 5 count. This was done to maximize. It was part of the method, and all of the orders and all of the even though they could speak English and so on, most of it was done in Hungarian. So I picked up Hungarian fairly quickly, and because of my facility with languages, there were several Israelis there also, and there were several English speakers, and I think and there were some Poles there and so on, and the conductors came to me and said, "Look, she is," and we all knew that she was sort of a difficult personality to begin with, this girl. But they said, we can't communicate with her. Would you please try to communicate with her so that she can tell us, what's wrong with her, so that maybe we can get somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds so frustrating for everybody.
Yeah. And so I became, the way I like to tell it is, I became an interpreter. That was my first exercise in simultaneous interpretation. And the story goes like this. I basically became the interpreter without knowing that this is what you called it. And it turns out that this girl, and I interpreted to a doctor, because by that time they had a doctor there. She had pain in her stomach, in her right side, lower right quadrant, at what is known as, what I later learned was McBurney's point, which, if anybody knows anything about medicine, that's a telltale sign of appendicitis. So I translated that for her and got the message across. Obviously, so they took her away immediately. And I said to the doctor there, I said, I think this is appendicitis. It turns out that the same day she was operated on and had her appendix taken out.
Oh, thank goodness.
I was 11 or 12 at the time. So that was sort of, I became in many ways, an interpreter, and because of my facility with language, and because I picked up Hungarian by necessity.
And how did you pick it up? Did you have contact with the other Hungarian students that were housed elsewhere? Was it the nurses?
No. The conductors, the entire program was in Hungarian. There was yes, this was the international floor, right?
Okay.
But all of the orders, and they were orders, everything was done in Hungarian.
Okay. So they were just showing you what they wanted you to do.
You had no choice, and if you didn't do it, they would physically move you, and it was hell.
Yes.
So in order to minimize hell,
you picked it up and did it yourself.
As quickly as humanly possible, you began to understand that when they said "felalok," they meant stand your ass up. And when they said, and when they said, sit down, they meant sit down.
Yeah.
And when they said move your right leg, when they told you to play Twister, you played Twister.
Right.
So I mean, these are things that you picked up, and you learned how to tell. And to this day, I can't conduct conversations in Hungarian, but I can tell somebody that it hurts. I can ask for help. I mean, I asked for help a lot, and they ignored me. But I knew how to ask for help. I knew how to say please and thank you. I knew how to ask for the bathroom, to be brought into the bathroom. I knew how to tell them I was hungry. I knew how to tell them I was tired.
Yeah, the
and
basics.
As I'm thinking about these things, let me see if I can remember as we're sitting here years later. Segítsek is help me, please, or I need help. Fáradt vagyok, which they also ignored, is I'm tired.
Ah, they ignored that.
Éhes vagyok is I'm hungry, I think. And szomjas vagyok is I would like some food. Szomjas vagyok is I would like something to drink, or I'm thirsty.
Okay.
And I told you that everything was with a 5 count, right?
Right.
So I can to this day count to 5 in Hungarian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Now, how did this affect, because you talked so much about the emotional connection, and this doesn't sound like the most positive connection to Hungarian.
No, it wasn't. But Hungarian is a very strange language to begin with. And I say it's strange because it, as far as I know, it is only related to one other language in Europe. Do you know which one?
No, but I've heard that it's not related. It's not like related to the other.
So the only relation that it has is Finnish.
Oh, and Finnish is also kind of off on its own. Okay.
So there's Hungarian and there's Finnish.
How did that happen? They're not even next to each other.
No, they're not. But I have a feeling, and again, don't quote me on it. But how does most language develop? But
trade,
a lot of traveling and trade and land bridges and things of that sort. But yeah, so Finnish and Hungarian are very, sound very similar. But so, I mean, my point is, it's a very strange language to begin with. I'm not completely averse to Hungarian, but I'm like, oh, Hungarian, and I'll automatically sort of clam up. I feel myself clamming up when I hear it. It's like a lot of, and this is also fascinating, but a lot of Jews find it difficult or interesting that I have such a strong connection to the German language that I do because of our Nazi collective past, which is another thing that I found fascinating, and why I studied comparative literature. One of the things I wanted to figure out, but never really have to my satisfaction to begin with. But so
it's a big question.
It's a huge question, and it's one that still fascinates me. But it's, again, emotional connection to language. But so I have this aversion, but there's a part of me that says, oh, that's Hungarian. It's something that I used to know. It feels like something I used to know in a haze or something. It's like I'm familiar with that somewhere back there somewhere.
It's foggy and you can't really grasp it, but it's recognizable. Whereas if I heard Hungarian, I have no connection, never heard it.
Yeah. I mean,
it has no effect on me.
I would know it's Hungarian. And there were a lot, which I don't remember to this point, but there was also a lot of singing. I mean, they did a lot of nursery rhymes in Hungarian and children's songs, which I wish I could remember now, but I can't. And it's something that if I listen to it, it's like, yeah, I know that's Hungarian, and I know I'm familiar with it, and I can pick up like those few words, and there are a few things that I can pick up, like I would like, or to this day I can say hello and goodbye. More than that I didn't need, because my time in Hungary was literally, we would get up in the morning. We had to be there at basically at 8:30 in the morning. So we rented an apartment. We rented apartments, and we would get up, and this was November, December, and then January through March. So it was cold, as you know, in Eastern Europe. One freezes oneself. So you would, and of course Hungary was at the time, and probably is now, one of the least accessible places in the world, which is why this whole technique needed to be there to begin with. So we would get up, and we would get a taxi, and I learned very quickly to tell them that we needed to go to the Peter Institute, please, and I would arrive there at 8:30 in the morning, and from 8:30 to 5 o'clock, my life would be this program, this training program. And then I would leave the institute, go back to the apartment, have nightmares, get up and do it again.
A long day.
That was the extent of my interaction with Hungarian. So I don't know. I mean, which the history buff in me is really sad about that, because if you think about it, 1988, 1989, Hungary was one of the first countries, if not the first one, that dropped communism. Hungary was the first one to crack the Iron Curtain at that time. So while I was 10, 11 years old, outside around me, a lot of political things were happening, historical things were happening, of which I was simply unaware. And yes, I was such a geek at the time where it would have interested me. But I was so,
you were caught up in
all
so the newness,
caught up in this thing, in this treatment, which did help as much as I fought it, and I fought it tooth and nail, but it did help quite a bit. But I was so.
I'm glad to hear that it at least helped.
Well, it helped, and then I stopped, and so I regressed. But I mean, it did what it was supposed to do, I guess, despite me. But my focus was not outside, and was not. I couldn't. There was no way I could. I knew what was going on, which I wish. I wonder what it would have been like had I been aware. During that time, every day we live in history, but that's a particular time. Yeah, so I mean that's my story with Hungarian, and that's how I became an interpreter for a while, and I guess helped save a girl's life.
What did you think about interpreting? Did you think like, oh, this could be a cool job? This is stressful. How did you?
At the time, I was just trying to be the bridge, and to make it so that this poor girl would be less in pain, and get her needs met. That was the extent of it, and my whole focus was to be able to do exactly what they wanted as quickly as they wanted it, so that they would yell the least. Because when one yells in Hungarian, it's like when one yells in German. It's not pleasant. At least I found it to be unpleasant, because they were often yelling at me. I think I blocked out the word for lazy, but that was a word that they used with me a lot.
Because that helps just to call someone names.
It helped tremendously. But yeah, I'm glad I was able to do it. It was, but unfortunately, the whole thing of, could this be a career? Could this be a job? I was in survival mode. I think we all were. So it's like we were in survival mode, and we did what we had to do. Then I'm just glad it happened. And but yeah, no, interpretation is a very different ball of wax, though. I've learned. Translation is fun. Takes a lot of work, and to do it well, it's an art.
It takes a lot of time, but you have the luxury of time versus like instantaneous interpreting is so. I can't even imagine. It's.
I mean,
amazing.
Your brain has to work. Double and triple and quadruple times to do it effectively. I'm in awe of people who do it well.
Me too.
And the people who do it well are constantly making, mistakes and being less than eloquent when they're doing it simultaneously. But I'm still in awe of it, because to take complex ideas and to make that connection, is a tremendous thing. And it's all about, again, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's all about connection, and it's all about hearing and seeing the other person, and finding a way to connect with somebody else, and having our worlds meet, because each of us is a world, and the only way we can share our world is through connecting with other people.
Very true.
And so that's what language does for me, and it always has done, and it's fun, and it's necessary, and it's, and thank God I'm good at it, because I'm not good at, it feels like I'm not good at many other things, but thank God I'm good at this.
I'm sure you are. I know we all feel that way sometimes, but
so
great that language has brought you so much joy and entertainment.
It's a gift that I'm really aware of and glad that I have. And I don't know if without the disability, if I would have, been able to indulge it and develop it the way I have.
That's a good point.
Because thank God I can speak and be understood in without a problem, because a lot of people with CP can't. Because I've had to work harder to be understood and to be heard, languages became that much more important. And because I could do it. So it's a wonderful gift, and it's a lot of fun. It's one of the things I'm really good at.
Is there anything that you're looking forward to doing this year, language-wise?
Is there any? Well, I would love to see in October, November. You probably remember we had coronavirus. We were going to do this interview months ago, I think, and we were being very, very careful and overly careful, and we still got corona. And it kind of wipes you out, and we're whatever recovered looks like we are, thank God now, or we're getting there. I mean, but before corona, every day I would make sure that I was in. I did, some Rosetta Stone, and just the fatigue level and all that, I stopped it. And since the whole corona, I haven't really picked it up. I mean, I have a lifetime subscription, so I can pick it up at any point. But I would like to be able to re-engage with that. I had a system where I do 2 languages at a time.
Okay.
In Rosetta Stone. So I picked one that I know better and was just for review, right? And then one that I really needed work in. Yeah. So I reviewed Spanish, right? And while I was doing Spanish, I did Polish. I had a system where I would switch off languages. So I would do Spanish one day, Polish the next, Spanish one day, Polish the next, until that was over. So, and I finished Polish and Spanish like that. Okay. And then I said to myself, okay, next language pair, Italian and Russian. And that got cut off in the middle. Okay. So I would like to somehow get my motivation up to re-engage with that again.
I think that is a good method, that you have like a stronger one and a weaker one. I do that as well. Like, I'm not going to start 2 new languages at the same time. I think that's a crazy idea. There are people that do it, but I think it's better to just work on one brand new language.
Yeah. And what it does is it sort of gives me a break, but it does it from the one that's really newer. Like I said, Romance languages are really easy for me. So, but there are things in Italian that I don't know. So I'm picking up here and there. That's my active learning, and then theoretically the next day should be Russian. But I that's something I have to re-engage with. And what it does is, it's interesting because I find myself gravitating and looking more forward to in this case, the Italian than the Russian, just because it's easier. Yeah. And because I'm lazy. I mean, it's a comfort. It's a comfort language. Yeah. So when I was doing, even though I have a connection, an emotional connection to Polish, and I always will, doing Spanish was sort of a comfort language, because that I know is going to be an easy day. And so the Polish, even though I had done it once before, it was still, I mean, some of it was still a challenge, especially the writing and the letter combinations. Yeah. The Poles, I love them. They're wonderful people. They have an obsession with the letter Z.
Yes. Well, there's three of them.
Yes,
Z with a dot, and Z with a line.
yes, there are three Z's, and there has to be the Z has to somehow connect and be combined with the Z, with a C, and then with an R, and then
D.
with a D, and these are just sounds that if you don't know them,
Yeah.
and where do they come from?
Yeah.
And so that was always interesting. The interesting thing is that once I moved over to Russian, and the alphabet became different.
Yeah.
Making, assigning the certain sounds to certain alphabet to a completely different alphabet, and having it go in my head. Okay, whatever this character looks like in Cyrillic, that's the sound it makes.
Right.
See, and what I found was that in Polish, the difficulty, at least in writing, comes in the fact that because it's Latin letters, and I have in my head sort of a preconception of how these letters sound
and how they should be combined,
and how they should be combined, and then to see the way the Poles combine it.
Yeah,
it's sort of until you realize that and you get okay with that. Like my grandfather was born in the town of Rzeszów. Okay, now you know how to spell Rzeszów. I know how to spell Rzeszów, but I have to think about it. What is it?
Yeah,
it's RZECZO with the accent W, I think.
Is it CZ or S? Rzeszów?
No, it's not an S. It's a CZ.
I think it's SC, but it doesn't matter. I do want to say that the sounds are not as scary as the letters, because like you just said, RZ makes a J, like in French, right? Like J. So it's right, not a sound that we're not unaware of. Pleasure has it.
But a J in French is you can somehow connect that. Okay, it's a soft J. Where the hell do you get RZ? RZ makes a soft J.
And DZ is a like J, like a strong like jeans.
Is a J, and sometimes it's a Z, and
yeah.
But until you get it through your head, and that, and of course the grammar. Yeah. Now, English grammar. Thank God I had a sense of German grammar.
Yeah,
because
cases.
German grammar also works with cases. The issue, and I think the Poles have too much time on their hands. I really do. Who needs 8 cases?
8 or 7?
I thought Polish had 8.
Only 7.
German 7?
Yeah. There's nominative, genitive, accusative, locative, vocative. Trying to think of all their names in English.
You have
Miejscownik, narzędnik. What's the difference with those?
You have also an indicative in Polish, don't you? So in German you have nominative, accusative, dative, and genitive.
Oh, dative. I forgot dative.
Okay. In Polish you have those 4 plus 3 plus the
what they call miejscownik, which is like where something's located. Narzędnik, which is how you use something.
How you use it.
Like I'm going by train. And then the vocative, which is when you're calling, like mommy.
Then you have the evocative, right? And something interesting that happens in Polish that doesn't happen in German, when you the case changes from accusative to dative during negation.
To genitive.
Yeah. So see what I mean?
It's crazy.
Who the hell needs 7 cases, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Thank God I had some, the German, so I had some form of understanding as a background. Okay, if this is how we're gonna do this, that's what I'm gonna break my head with this eventually.
To counter your how complex Polish is, my kids are picking it up. My daughter is 2 and she's already making the right endings. So in Polish, words like we're saying will change depending on their use in the sentence. And she's already, at first, she didn't. Everything was the nominative. But now she can say, like, instead of saying there isn't niema, she used to say koty, cats, but now she knows to say kotów. So she's like, they pick it up naturally. So I see it in my own kids that it's so natural to them. And I spent years, and I'm still spending years trying to learn it.
Right, because they're picking it up organically. They're not thinking about it.
No, they just hear how we speak, and they're like, "Oh, mommy said that differently. Maybe I should." And then they also do it wrong. Like sometimes they'll add, they'll try and make something in genitive that shouldn't be. Like they're trying it out. They're trying lots of things, and it's very cute.
so because I have a hard time writing, when we communicate, I send you voice memos.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I told you this story, speaking of how, children and language, and how it changed, how we use it. But my sister, when she was young, she was like one or two, and she would, she was also just picking up the language.
Mm-hmm.
And to say, I am running,
mm-hmm.
the present tense feminine of I am running in Hebrew
mm-hmm.
is ani ratza. Ani ratza. I am running. Okay.
And you should tell people that people might not know, Hebrew has a female form and a male form for all tenses, right?
Female form and a male form for all tenses, right?
Whereas my students in French were like, "Why do I have to show it in the passé composé?" And I'm like, "Oh, it can be worse, kids.
It can be much more interesting, and you can do many more gymnastics. So so the present tense feminine form of I am running in Hebrew is ani ratza,
mm-hmm.
right? I am running. So she would run around the house yelling ani rana, ani rana, ani rana.
Oh.
And she would combine ratza, I'm run, the
mm-hmm.
feminine form in Hebrew, with to run. So ani rana. And she would run, and it would make us all laugh hysterically, because she would run around announcing that this is what she was doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're so proud when they're learning of all the words they know.
And so that sort of stuck with me. I was like, but again, that's how we talk about language being an organic thing, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a wonderful example of language is a living, breathing thing. It's organic, and that's a beautiful example of how that works.
What is the masculine form? Because now I'm curious. I'm running.
I'm present tense.
Yes.
Ani ratz.
That's okay. So it's just the it's
well, ani ratz.
Okay.
Is I'm running.
Mm-hmm.
So but so it was
That's
for
so
some
cute.
reason, that always stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Kids are fascinating. They're very. I wish I could study all of them. How they're learning.
What's interesting to me is that we talked about how, by gradations, my Hebrew is better than both of my sisters, and regardless of how of their ability in Hebrew,
mm-hmm.
they will never call my parents, and neither will I. They will never say mommy and daddy.
Mm-hmm.
It's always ima and abba.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Likewise, grandparents are never grandma and grandpa, or take your pick in any other language. In Hebrew, it's Saba and Savta.
Mm-hmm. This
is how we relate. Our Polish, my mother's father was Saba Marek.
Mm.
Okay. My grandmother, who is stubborn as all hell and still alive in Israel to this day, 97.
Wow.
Is Safta Ida.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Litvak, the Lithuanian grandmother. Mm-hmm. My father's parents, the grandfather who gave me the assignment of our family chronicle,
mm-hmm.
the one that really got me into German by necessity,
mm-hmm.
and that's why I love it so much. Saba Eliezer. Okay. and his wife, he was married to Chava, so she was Savta Chava. Now, if we were to call them anything else, or it would just be weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right to do anything else.
Yeah.
Calling my parents anything other than Abba and Ima, or speaking to them in anything other than Hebrew, we do it when we're in public, and because not everybody speaks Hebrew, which I don't understand why that works, but there is a fact in the world that not everybody speaks Hebrew. But
not yet.
Right. But to address them in anything other than Hebrew, to me, despite the fact that I lose, that there's attrition there, is just weird to me. Always will be.
Yeah. I think that's the powerful thing with, you were saying, connection, and having that personal connection with somebody and the language. So that's just, you automatically associate all those people with, that language, and then the names that are attached show that relationship.
I'm just sitting here and thinking, when we communicate, our communication is in English. And you talked about, my possibility of joining the French groups to dust off my French, or my speaking ability in French. I wonder how weird it will feel when we are part of the same group, and all of a sudden we start, communicating in French, the two of us. It's a thought experiment I just went through in my head.
Yeah, my students I never addressed them in English, but then there was a time when I said something to them in English, and they were like, oh, Madame, it's so weird to hear you speak English.
Madame, vous pouvez parler anglais.
Wait, quoi? They're like, your voice is different, and this and that, and yeah.
Qu'est-ce que s'est passé? Vous pouvez parler anglais.
Pourquoi vous parlez anglais?
Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? It's going to be really interesting to see, and I hope we get a chance, and maybe we can reflect on it in a future podcast if you would like. Again, because the way that we started, and our main mode of communication is English. How would it be if we tried to consciously change that?
Yeah, it can be tough to change, but it's possible.
So you talked about in your last podcast, in your last episode, which I found, the short one with the language plan and how it changes. Tell us more maybe about how is it going with having to bring in French now with the kids. Are they taking to it better?
They are. Yeah. So even today, my son was like joking around using all three languages. So I'm trying to think what the word was, but they were like, they change the way that they talk to me. Like they'll say mommy in English, and he was saying maman in French. And I was like, qu'est-ce que tu veux? So he'll like use those words to be like, oh, I want you to speak this language. So it's cute. Yeah, they're slowly picking up. There was another word he was saying, but now I can't remember. Oh, he tried to say, we were video, like FaceTiming my family in English. And he tried to say like what he was eating. And what did he say? He's like, I want, no, this might have just been with Polish. I want parówkę or something. He was like, I want the hot dog.
Okay.
But no, I'm trying. I feel like he did use French at some point. Maybe he said je veux parówkę. And I was like, I think it was, and I was like, whoa, wrong language. Like we're speaking in English, but
right.
But then he didn't know the word for hot dog, so he said it in Polish. But it's cute. Like I see them like trying to use it more. So. And
is there a language that they ask you to speak more? Is there a language that, we talked about emotional connection. Is there one that they're gravitating towards more or less?
Yeah, if I ask like, what language do you want this book read in? They'll say po polsku. They want it in Polish. So
okay.
I'm like, now I got to translate it, but
now you've got to translate it or find it.
Not perfectly, but like what's kind of going on.
Yeah, but as long as they hear it in Polish, they're happy.
Yeah, that's still their dominant for sure. English is second, and then French is the lowest.
Once they start going to school, would be my guess, and being more, by necessity outside. Yeah. The English will come.
For sure.
If I'm any indication, and your kids are probably, much better off than I was at the beginning, but I picked it up in 6 months, and I was already correcting, as I said, my parents before.
Right.
Especially at that age, they'll pick it up, really. I mean, English is the one language I wouldn't worry about.
Oh,
You know?
that's why I haven't. But my parents were like, speak to them in English. They don't speak English. And I was like, I'm not worried about English.
Right. No, they do. They just, it's not something they hear as often. And television and everything else is all around them is English. So.
Oh, no, we do Polish TV.
Where,
but now on.
Okay.
I'll do French TV.
Now help me. Where does one get Polish TV?
Oh, I wish I could tell you. My husband buys like a box that.
Okay. The channel I listen to most often is, do you know 50 Napu?
For what, radio?
No, it's a YouTube channel.
Oh, YouTube. No.
Her name is Kasia. She's in Chicago, and it's a Polish American family, and and they grew up in Chicago.
Oh, I do know her. 50 Napu. Yeah.
50 Napu.
Yeah.
And I listen to her often. And I'll watch Dave's Ameriki.
Yeah, I know him. And so Napu means half. So 50, 50 Napu. Yeah.
Yeah. That much I remember. Yeah.
There's actually full-length Polish films on YouTube.
Yes, I actually
older ones.
The most recent one I saw was I forget, but I'll it's on my list. I'll find it. I'll send it to you. Maybe you can put it in the show notes. Has something to do with a rock star and his daughter, and trying to get to reconnect with his daughter. But that's in Polish. And then there was another one. It's a series. It's called 1984. That's also originally in Polish. I just started to watch on Netflix now Tabula Rasa, which is originally in Flemish, but there's a Polish track.
We don't have Netflix, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're like the only people left on the earth with no.
Well, Netflix is my main, but yeah, no, there's stuff out there. But no, Polish TV would be fascinating. I know that there's like I said, I listen to the radio somewhat in Polish. I'll again, not that I understand much. I mean, numbers I can follow when they talk about coronavirus numbers and how many people are sick and how many people are dying. God forbid. I wish I didn't understand that, but I get that.
That would be the thing I'd want to go over my head.
Right. There is access on YouTube to 24-hour streaming Polish news, which I also have listened to on occasion. So I mean, it's there, but Polish TV would be interesting too. But if you say he does it through a box, then... He
got a box, and then it's like I think he did like a 6-month subscription. But yeah, my husband does that.
Oh, okay. At least now I know how you get Polish TV in your apartment. Just it depends. I'll wake up and what do I feel like listening to or hearing. I go. It's very much based on a gut feeling. What interests me that day, and if it happens to be in whatever language, then
so be it.
That will be it. But there really is no plan. I just because I view it as sort of a game and sort of a fun, and sort of an adventure, which it is. The question is, where am I going today? Kind of thing. So it's not at all regimented.
Well, keep it if it works. Don't mess with it.
It works, exactly. So and that's what works for me. And if it works for other people that way, great. And if it doesn't work for you, find another way that works.
Right.
And find, everybody has to find their own motivation. You talked about motivation in languages.
Yep.
Whatever your motivation is, find it
and run with it.
Run with it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Etai, do you have any words in certain languages that you'd like to teach us listeners?
Do I have words? I have too many words.
Anything that sticks out?
Let me ask you this: are there any words that you can think of that you would like to hear in any of the languages? Because that's easier for me. That's easier for me than trying to pull something out of a very confused hat.
Yes.
So are there any words that you're curious about that I might be able to help you with?
Yeah, that's a big question. But maybe just like a simple sentence that you could say in different languages so we can kind of hear the various different forms, the variation. So it could just be something simple like I'm tired or I'm happy.
Right now in this moment, I'm happy. So let's go.
And
I'm happy.
Just say it. Don't tell us what languages. This will be a little game. And then at the end, you can say what order.
Okay. Well, that presupposes that I'll remember.
Okay, I'll help you.
So I'm happy. We know that that's English, right?
Yep, I think so.
Okay. So English we've got taken care of. Ani sameach. Ich bin froh. Je suis content. Soy contento. Why can't I think about it in Polish right now? God. Okay, you can provide the Polish.
It's a tricky one.
Because right now it's escaping my mind, and the minute you say it, I'm going to hit myself over the head. Of course, that's it. What is it? Happy.
Szczęśliwe.
Yeah. Okay. Which at the moment I can't get my mouth around it.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
What am I missing?
Maybe Italian or Portuguese. I'm not sure how to say it in either of those.
In Italian, it's sono felice.
Sono felice.
In Portuguese, of course, escapes me at the moment. See, that's what happens when you have so many words and languages in your head. You start a sentence in one way, and then by the time it's over, you've gone through every.
That was very impressive. I wouldn't worry. So, listeners, do you know what languages those were? Dun, 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 dun. So it was English, Hebrew, German, French, Spanish, Polish, Italian.
I'm impressed that you remembered the order.
I have a pen.
Pens. Well,
yes.
Pens help. Good.
Taking notes.
Un stylo.
Oui, j'ai un stylo et j'ai marqué des petites notes.
Très bien, très bien.
I am not that good at this hour of the night to keep that in my brain.
But the fact that we can do this and just pop in and out, I don't know. This to me is fun, but I'm a geek and I love it.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of good content. This is reminding me of some YouTube videos that we found recently that have inter-Slavic.
Yes.
There was a guy that does lots of like quizzes where he's like, would French speakers understand? Have you know his account?
Yeah, I know this guy who is
Ecolinguist.
Ecolinguist, yes, I love.
He has a great account.
This is a wonderful account. If anybody hasn't seen it, go there immediately.
Yes.
If you want linguistic gymnastics, which I think everybody should engage in at least one of these videos a day just for fun.
Oh, they're great.
He's got a wonderful account, and it's the Ecolinguist is his channel.
And while we're talking about games, have you ever played the game that there's, I think, 3 different websites where it's like guess the language. So you either hear it and guess, or you see the script and you guess.
Yes, I've done that too. And Ecolinguist, he's got it too.
He's got videos on that.
He does a lot of that too.
Yeah,
those are fun. Those are fun. And he's got videos where there will be people trying to guess. There will be 3 like a Pole, a Russian, and pick another Slavic language.
Yeah, like a Bulgarian, and if they can understand Croatian.
Trying to figure out Croatian. Or if one of them that I remember was French, Spanish, and Portuguese. Can they understand Creole, Haitian Creole?
Oh wow, I gotta watch that one.
Which is a really interesting exercise because that is a dialect that will break your brain if you're not paying attention. But it's interesting. There's so much fun stuff that on that channel. There's also we talk about language and culture. There's a channel called Dating Without Borders. that she's originally Russian, but she lives in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and she does all of these videos. You're dating and pick your nationality when, and we talk about how language and culture interact. That's sometimes a really interesting channel to look at.
I should look that up. That's funny.
For the cultural exchange and cultural competency. There's so much good stuff out there. For those of you who want, there's the 50 Napu that we talked about. For those whose Polish is better, and even if it's not, she does a really wonderful job. Oh, and there's another one. His name, I think, is Baudo Ablast. Also does a comparison. Comparing, for example, if you put in YouTube, how similar are Hebrew and Arabic, for example, you'll come up with his channel, and he does a whole bunch of language comparison and can you guess these words and sentences and so on.
Oh, fun.
So there's a whole world out there, which we're really lucky to have. The community, for the most part, is a wonderful community, and this is actually the first time I've reached out and communicated with the community. Through your podcast. Your podcast is wonderful.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you.
And thank you for being willing to connect with me. And I hope this wasn't too much of a rambling, which I tend to do. But it's a great community. I'm really glad that we connected and to be a part of it. And just before we go, I know we wanted to talk about one of my degrees that I have is in counseling psychology. And I've had a hard time becoming a licensed counselor mostly because of accessibility reasons and financial reasons, but especially given the times in which we're living with coronavirus, etc. I have started in July a business called Etai, the listening guy, and it's not to be mistaken for or confused for in any way, professional counseling or anything like that. But anyone who wants to talk and wants to just be heard and just find a way to take a load off, that is a service I offer. I'm at the moment I'm on Facebook at Etai, the listening guy. And I can be reached by email at etaithelisteningguy@gmail.com. I'm working on getting a website up, hoping that business will take off as a result. I for those who would like and or need services in most of the languages that were on display today, I can provide them comfortably in, I would say, English, Hebrew, and German, although I'm working on all the other ones. And the thing about, just the one last thing, about language in general, and this is sort of a lot of how I look at counseling and connecting with people, very much influenced by my language learning and my language journey, is the way I understand it is everyone has their own unique language. I have my own unique language and you have yours, Heather. And in order for us to communicate, we have to build a common vocabulary together. And a successful communication and a successful relationship, and a successful interaction comes from being able to build a vocabulary together and agree on definitions of words and meaning and phrases. So that's how I don't know if it makes sense what I said, but I really see counseling and coaching as finding your own language and finding a way to connect with another, by learning their language, And then once we've learned the language, whether it's, one of the languages that we've talked about here, or whether it's definitions of words and concepts, then we can start to build our a common language, and that's how we can connect. And I promise that, I will do a lot more listening and a lot less talking if you want to try out the service.
To be fair, it is an interview, so you are expected to speak a lot.
Yes, but I promise that I will actually be the listening guy and speak less and listen more, as quote unquote advertised. So if you would like, I would be more than happy to connect with you.
And we should say Etai is spelled Etai. So
yes,
if you're searching
and
that.
Yes, and the funny thing is that there is no correct way to spell Etai in English, since it's, I've seen it spelled in many, many different ways. I've also heard it pronounced in many different ways. I pronounce it Etai, and we've chosen to spell it, Etai. So it's Etai, the listening guy, one word, and that's on Facebook, or it's Etai, the listening guy @gmail.com.
Yeah, and I'll put links in the show notes.
Good.
Well, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure.
Well, this was so much fun.
Yeah, we had so much to talk about. We could keep going, but we have to end the episode eventually.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to my interview with Etai. We hope you found it interesting and that you learned something that you can use in your own language learning journey. I know I personally found his story very inspirational, and he mentioned a lot of good resources, so I will do my best to add as many as I can into the show notes so that you can go and find them yourself. As always, please share this podcast and this episode if you found it interesting. And if you do share on Instagram, please tag me so that I can see. You can always get in touch if you have comments or feedback. Like I said, on Instagram @thefutureisbilingual. You can also email at tfibpodcast@gmail.com. And if you are enjoying the podcast, please take a minute and leave a review. That would mean so much to me. You can also just let me know by email, because that also makes my day. And we hope that you stay well, and we'll have a new episode out soon. Take care. Bye-bye.